Welcome to today's podcast episode on MonicaAnn. I'm your host, MonicaAnn. If you have not done so, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a podcast episode. Hello, Luke. Thank you so much for being here and, agreeing to let me interview you on my podcast. I'm so grateful. Just for anybody who's watching, I met Luke.Simpson through work and we were on a Zoom call, and I happened to see across the top of your browser bar that you had a Christian author pinned. And that's kind of what sparked my interest. And I was like, oh, are you a believer? And, what is your testimony? So I'm really grateful that you're here to share that today. One of the biggest reasons why I wanted to have you on here today is for people who are watching is, talking about how you balance your career, like your job, but then also how you told me that you are moving in, well, you are in ministry currently, but then you are getting ready to open your own church, right?
Yeah. We're in the church planting process. So we're gonna be hoping to launch a church here in the fall. Again, I'm Luke. I'm a little bit of everything. So I'm a pastor, an evangelist, church planter. I'm also a business owner. By day I'm a Salesforce consultant and developer. So I wear a lot of different hats. But my proudest hats are that, I'm a husband of my wonderful wife Laura, and we have a wonderful 16-month-old boy named Judah, who's just a bundle of fun. He's up running around, so I just chase him around, have tons of fun. So all of those things definitely keep me extra busy. And it's definitely hard to keep them all in balance for sure. The complications of being like a bivocational pastor is is very heavy. I think a lot of people are like, well, you're a pastor. Like, what do you guys really do during the week? Like, you pray for 5 minutes and write something down, you're good to go. And I'm like, no, you're like, you got to consider that, people may be calling you at, middle of the night with, funerals, with hospital visits, whatever else is going on. On top of that, you are trying to be a scholar. So you're trying to study and make sure that you can put forward a wonderful sermon each week. That sermon can't just be studied, though. It also has to be super personable. You have to be exciting. You have to be charismatic. You have to have something that's not just intelligent, but meaningful. So you're measuring all of that while also, managing volunteers. If you have a building, you're managing building projects, making sure the building's in place. If you have a staff, you're measuring them, making sure that they're all taken care of. And it just starts to add on top very quickly. And so bivocational pastor has all of that, plus your family and your business and something that, makes enough income to make sure that you can take care of your family and continue to do the church work. Um,
Yeah.
so it's a lot of work for sure. One of the things that I found that is so difficult in that is to actually maintain your faith. Whereas, like, if you were to say, what's the most important thing to prioritize in weighing all that, it's not giving up on the spiritual disciplines, right? It's not giving up on daily Bible reading, on daily prayer time. I heard one pastor said, when I went into full-time ministry, I was 100% pastor and I was about 50% Christian. And so I'm
Wow.
like, that's very true. There's a lot of people going through that because you get so busy. You're like, I'll do the practical things. I'll get it done. I'll make sure this all is done. At the end of the day, you're like, I didn't get to spend any time with God. I didn't get to, be in his presence. I didn't get to talk to him. Why am I doing this again? And so
Yeah.
if you don't extra prioritize that and say, this is not just something on the side, but my prayer time, my time with God is actually first and foremost, the practical stuff can fill in on its own. That's one of the biggest things that's helped me um, keep all those things in check.
Yeah, that's such a great point is that you get so caught up in, all the different things that you're doing. You're like, all right, yeah, I'm going to open this church. And then you get so busy with all these extra things that, yeah, you can get caught up into it and lose sight of why you started to begin with. So, yeah, that's incredible that you brought that up. One of the things that I noticed that you said was all of the extra things that you do when people are calling you. And so obviously, you've built your church, which most churches are, but I have heard complaints from other semi believers about like community or like people talking about how like other Christians let them down and they felt that they weren't there for them. What do you have to say about that? Maybe somebody who's struggling with that piece and looking at somebody and saying, oh, well, they're supposed to be a Christian and they weren't there for me when I needed them. And then they're kind of like looking down on the faith.
Yeah, yeah. And sadly, that's an all too common thing nowadays. It's got term church hurt. People experience real trauma from things like church hurt. And so, the first thing, from my position is all I can do is, on behalf of the church, I just want to say sorry. Like it may not mean much, but I'm sorry that those Christians let you down. I'm sorry that, maybe pastors, Christian leaders let you down in that way. And and I'm just sorry. I feel for you. I've experienced church hurt myself and gone through those phases, and it's really hurtful. It's really isolating. And so, one of the things that, has encouraged me is when I was going through my own church hurt, is I would find that I would go and I would blame God for the things people were doing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would feel like, God, why aren't you elevating me to the right position? Why are you letting people use me and abuse me and just kind of push me down? Why are you doing this to me? And every time I blame it on God, I was building that divide between us. I was like, God just got farther and farther away. And I was like, the only one who could heal my church hurt in the first place was going to be God. And
Mm-hmm.
if I was just going to push him away and blame him for all the things people were doing, I was never going to heal. I was never going to move on. And I was going to miss the meaningful community that does exist in a church.
Mm-hmm.
That this is not in every church. But, if you go to churches, they're primarily filled with people who are loving, who are caring for you. They're not, big wig, celebrities, whatever else. It's just the standard person, sitting there next to you that you're just like, you care for me, I care for you. How can I help you today?
Mm-hmm.
And church hurt keeps you from that. And so as hard as it is, I'd say try again. Make sure you have boundaries. Don't go in blind. Don't go just oversharing and over vulnerable, but go in and say, you know what? I'm gonna give this a second chance. I don't want to blame God for what people are doing to me. I want that relationship and I want the community he actually has intended for me.
Yeah.
Um, maybe not those who have hurt you in the past.
Yeah, definitely. That's such a great explanation is that to remember that the entire point is your relationship with God and that everybody that is in the community has their own struggles that they're dealing with
Hmm.
in day to day. So a lot of the times it's more of, well, what can I do to help them? And that's kind of how you initiate it. And then you'll kind of warm up to the community. So I really love that explanation. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
that.
that's really good.
I'm just looking at my my notes that I jotted down over here. So I was fishing around on your YouTube channel and also your website. And one of the things that you mention is your mobile ministry. Can you tell me a little bit about that? And I saw a blurb on there that talks about like if other people are interested in doing it. So do you allow other people to take like a van? What is it?
Yeah, yeah. So this is a really cool ministry we started this past summer. And we call it the Gospel Truck. There are other ministries doing similar things throughout America. And it's really cool. What we did is we bought a box truck last year and we literally just sawed out the sides of it and just cut it open, turned the sides of the box truck into doors that swing open wide and basically give us a mobile stage. Um, and so what we do is we take that to various parks and various, populated places in the city, and we go and share the gospel with them. We believe that Jesus commissioned us in the Great Commission to say, go into all the world and preach the gospel. And so we want to be obedient to what he's told us to do. Now I know some people, when they hear that gospel truck
Yeah.
evangelism, they start thinking like, oh, you're one of those megaphone people. I'm scared. Like, please no. And
That's
that's
funny.
not what we're trying to do, right? We try to say we do want to preach the gospel. We want to share the good news that Jesus still saves and still delivers today. But we don't want to do it in a way that's overly abrasive or mean. And one of the ways that we found that people are very receptive to is if we match it with music.
Hmm.
So my wife is a worship pastor. I can play guitar and bass guitar, and her whole family's musical geniuses. So
Very
we
cool.
we bring in different musicians and we actually play music during that time.
Oh, like
And
with a
so
live band.
right, so we play with the live band and we go out there, we play worship music and they'll get through a song and then I'll give like 2 3 minute just word on how God can change your life, how he can help you, how he is still moving and still active and searching for you. And one of the things I expected when we went out and did this gospel truck ministry was that we were going to go out there and we were just going to get shouted down, yelled at, we were going to get things thrown at us. And surprisingly, it hasn't happened yet. Doesn't mean it won't. Um, but
Yeah.
it hasn't happened yet. And it's weird. We go to a park nearby our house that's very, very popular, and we just park in the parking lot and do our thing. And we've actually witnessed where people are just walking down the path and they're just singing along to our song and then just walking on. Like
Oh.
they're like, we're not gonna stop now. We have other people who come and stop and listen and respond. But it's like people are much more receptive, and I think that's the beauty of music. It has a way of just kind of disarming people and saying, we're safe. We're not trying to hurt you. We're trying to offer you, a gift of eternal life. So,
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is, I've heard the term Bible thumper so many
yeah.
times, right? And so it's like, no, just because I go to church and maybe I talk about it, there's a difference between a Bible thumper and somebody who is just sharing the Lord, the word, right? Bible thumper,
Exactly.
to me, definition would be somebody who is imposing their beliefs on you and being like, you're not doing this, you're not following this, right? This scripture says this, right? And like thumping you over the head with the Bible. That's the way that I take the definition of a Bible thumper. So what an inviting way for you to do that. One suggestion for you would be to post shorts of, lives of people walking by your band and singing along. I actually watch videos like that on YouTube. So I would be one of your followers, watching that because I love the idea of community in general. And so when I
hmm
see videos like that, I'm just like, oh, it warms my heart. I just love to see like everybody participating and then you guys being so inviting to anybody who walks by, just saying, you know what, hey, we have this common ground, come sing with us, come dance with us. And so I love to see that because I feel like, I don't even like to watch the news, to be honest. It can be
Yeah.
so brutal and depressing and seeing all the
hmm
negativity
hmm
that any ounce of the positivity that I can get, sign me up. I'm watching it all day long. So
I get that for
yeah,
sure. We'll have to take that advice. We tried experimenting a little, doing little, Facebook reels, and we're definitely gonna lean into that here
yeah,
this next go round for sure.
yeah, that'd be so fun. And I love music. So I would love to listen to your guys' music for sure. I'll give you all the likes.
Good,
Um,
good.
so one of the things that you did briefly touch on was I wanted to ask, what is your wife Laura's role in ministry?
Yeah, yeah. So we come from a kind of non-denominational, charismatic background, and so we believe that the Holy Spirit speaks through both men and women. And so uh, I'm getting a phone call or something. My phone is going off.
Oops.
Sorry, should have got that on not do not disturb.
It's okay.
Um, um,
It's funny. It's actually vibrating the camera. Like your face is shaking. That's hilarious. Every time it rings. I was like, what's happening? Are we having a that's
Sorry about that. Hopefully your editing skills might be really good, but if
yeah,
not,
I
we'll keep it in there.
honestly, my computer is so slow that I will not be editing that out, just to let you know, just because it's so difficult.
Cool.
So we're just going to
No.
record all the way through, not to make you more nervous, but I'm just going to slap it on there because you know what? This is real live footage, guys. Whoever is
Yeah.
watching,
Yeah.
there's no editing on these videos now. So
You get
yeah,
the real deal. They know it's not cut. It's
Exactly.
that's
You're
pretty
good.
good. No. Um,
So my question was, what is your wife's role in your ministry?
yeah. So, kind of what I was going with is, from our non-denominational charismatic background is, the Bible says that, in the Holy Spirit, there's neither Jew nor Greek, male nor female, for we're all one in Christ Jesus. And so we believe that the Holy Spirit, just as much the Holy Spirit speaks through me, he speaks through her as well. So, one of the ways that she does that is she is a stay-at-home mom. She left teaching for a time. She has her master's degree in education, very educated. And she's decided that one of the ways she can worship is through taking care of our son and making sure that he is, brought up in the ways of the Lord, that he is educated, that he is, given the attention he needs. And she does a wonderful job expressing her worship through that. Um, but beyond that, she might have more successful ministry than me, right?
Yeah.
She is a regular worship leader at multiple mega churches in the area. She comes with us on the Gospel Truck Ministries, and then again, she is one of the pastors with me at the church plant, where she takes a large charge in women's ministry, and she has a moms group that she runs throughout St. Louis that she's just starting up. And so her role is multifaceted, just kind of like mine is. But she kind of fills in all those gaps and does, like I said, just a wonderful job leading, ministering, and leading in worship.
Very cool. I love that. When I was a single mom, I was a single mom for 8 years before I was married previously. And I was part of like single moms groups at church, and they would have somebody that, like a teenager that would volunteer and babysit my kids while I would go in and, do different Bible studies. And it was such I have a very different upbringing than a lot of people. And so I did not have the best, example of what it looked like to live a godly life, but b to be that type of mother to my children. And so I
Hmm.
actually found that through my church groups. So bless Laura for signing up for that and doing that. That's something that I would love to get into. So I would love to have a conversation with her, because those are some things, in the future I want to give back. It helped
Yeah,
me
yeah,
so much that I'm like, I want to give this gift to other people. So I would love to touch base with her and get some information from her on how she got that started and, what her
yeah,
advice
definitely.
is.
She'd love to talk to you.
Yeah. So, one of the other things that you uh, talked about was your YouTube channel. And I read the description, but if you can tell people who are watching what your handle is
Yeah,
on YouTube, and also what your YouTube is about and what that inspiration was to create your YouTube channel.
yeah, definitely. So my YouTube handle is at Luke.Simpson. If you don't put it in perfectly right now because it's a new channel, you may not find it. So at Luke.Simpson will get you there.
And I'll
And
put the
this is
link below the
yeah,
video too.
perfect, perfect. Um, and this is actually part of, I'm a doctoral candidate for a doctor of ministry program, and this is actually part of my program. So I'm actually having that as like a practical portfolio piece to add to um, my ministry repertoire. But the reason I built that, again, it's kind of, did I build it for school? Did I build it for me? I built it for me, but it fit into school. Is that I believe that Christianity boils down more or less, if you want to make it really basic, is do you trust God? Like, can you trust God? And so there are various ways that people will try to destroy that trust. They'll try to say, Jesus isn't real or Jesus didn't, raise from the dead or whatever. And that kind of falls more into apologetics, which is simply defending the faith. It's saying, no, there's reasonable historical evidence, there's scientific evidence, there's archaeological evidence that proves that stories of the Bible are real, that Jesus really did raise from the dead. And so the whole YouTube channel is built on helping you trust God more. And so whether that means helping you defend against those apologetics kind of issues, or whether that just means what are you going through in life and how can I help you trust him as you move through those steps? Those are kind of the future videos that I'm planning on putting out there. as we speak is trying to say, you might be struggling with depression, you might be struggling with addiction or shame or whatever. And the whole point of this YouTube channel is to say, hey, let me show you how you can trust God more. Let me show you that He has dealt with that shame, that He has healed that depression, that He is still active in your life today and has not forgotten you. And so that's kind of the goal of that channel is to kind of reach those who are struggling and lost and help them to trust God more.
Very cool. And is that a um what what inspired you to do that though? Like, did you have maybe a friend who was going through depression? Did you experience it yourself? Like, what kind of put that in your heart to do it?
I'd say I've had that um, impression for a very long time. I've had that evangelist spirit. One of the things back here on my right here is a little $5 bill that my third grade teacher gave me because
Oh,
I got to do show and tell at public school, and I said my favorite show and tell is I want to show you this Bible story. It's John 3:16, and she said she went to dinner that night, paid her check, got her change back, and on the bill was written John 3:16.
after
And she's
you
like,
after
after I
you
had
did.
done the show and tell at school. And she was
Ah,
like, no way. And so she's like, I know you're a third grader. This is probably weird. I'm gonna give you $5, but I want you to keep this. I want you to see this, that, God was still moving. And so from just a young age, I could see that God would move in people's lives, that he would confirm things in their lives. And you mentioned depression, as one of the things. Yeah, I've struggled with depression before, and it's a dark place. I've been a Christian all of my life, basically, but that doesn't mean that I haven't had to deal with struggles, deal with things like depression or rejection, things like that. And just recalling that time of depression, the only thing that got me out of it as I sunk deeper, deeper into myself and just how everything wasn't working is that I felt the audible, like not the audible, just the impression of God's voice saying he was Emmanuel. And I was like, what does Emmanuel mean? Why would you tell? I hear it, at Christmas time, I hear it sometimes. And he's like, Emmanuel means God with us. It means that he is still with you. And I realized that in my depression, the reason that I couldn't get out of it was because I thought God had forgotten me. I thought he had left me behind. I thought he had good plans for everyone else, but not for me. And he just simply spoke that one word and it just changed everything. Is God is with you. He's with us.
yeah.
He has not forgotten you. He's not left you alone. And it was so inspiring in my life that I want to share that with others. I want other people to experience that power and presence of God that's so real that you can actually experience here on earth, and
Yeah.
it'll change your life.
That's so funny that you said that because I was going through that. Obviously, personally, some things that I have been through. And when I relocated from West Virginia to Arizona, I was sitting in the parking lot of a new church and I was literally like having that conversation with God. I was like, do you even see me? Like I'm
Hmm.
sticking with it. I'm not going back to my old life. And, I didn't do anything like crazy that was like,
Right.
ungodly. Right. But I certainly was not like living my everyday life, walking in that path. I had really strayed from that for the 2 years before that. And so as I'm sitting in the parking lot and I say that out loud and I walk into this new church by myself and I sit down in the pew and I'm Catholic and I get called up. Well, first I lock eyes with a little girl and like kind of look over and she's kind of looking at me over the pew and I thought it was super cute. And I get up to go receive communion and I feel a tug on my elbow. And I look back and she hands me a sheet of paper and just, skips off. And I look down at the sheet of paper and she had been drawing a portrait of me and colored it and
Oh.
everything with marker. And I literally just like looked up at God and tears started coming down
Hmm.
my face. And I look up and I was like, I asked, do you see me, God? And here he
Yeah.
has this little like
Yeah.
7-year-old girl hand me a portrait that she drew of me in church right as I'm receiving communion. And I was just like, wow, talk about like an instant
Yeah.
to
That's so amazing.
when you talk to him. Yeah, like it really is. And I saved that picture and I posted it on Facebook and I was just like, wow, this little girl, she, what a little angel, that, God, she heard the call from God, drew a portrait of me and came up and handed it to me
Uh-huh.
to confirm exactly the conversation that I was having with him. So it's so crazy. Like, and you said you were in the third grade when you gave
Well,
that speech to her?
yeah, when I gave that John 3:16 speech, yeah, I was in third grade. So just
Wow.
from the mouth of babes, right? From just God can use little kids just as much, if not more than he
Yeah.
can use us. We might get in the way.
Well, and talk about, what you said is you've seen how God works in other people's lives when you were telling that testimony. And at the same time, that's God working in your life, like
Hmm.
literally confirming to you that you are on the right path, that you were born for ministry. Like this is your purpose. So that's so cool. And, that's what your YouTube is about, right? Is about like finding your purpose, is what it says in the description. And
Yep, yep.
like what specifically do you think is your life purpose? Have you found that?
Yeah, yeah. I think that, from I went to you mentioned you're Catholic. I went to a Catholic Benedictine school and they had us memorize, just kind of basic what is the purpose of life? Why am I here? And it was simply to know God, to love him, to serve him in this world and be happy with him forever in the next. And I was like, that's a plain and simple answer. That's what I'm here for. To know him, to love him, serve in this world and be happy with him forever in the next. But, personally, I think God also has special things for each one of us. And so I've definitely found my calling, but I'm finding more every day. So,
Mhm.
through that time, in high school, part of what was going through that depression was I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I didn't know who I was supposed to be, where I was supposed to go. And that was so hard for me to think, does God have a purpose for me? And when I found it, just seeing how the gospel could change lives and how God had commanded us to do this and how it was something that I could help equip others to, it was almost natural how it progressed. And it wasn't like just an instant. It's like, you know, Bible says that, the word is a lamp to our feet. And,
Mhm.
the thing about a lamp is it's not like a flashlight. You can't see, 20 feet, 30 feet ahead of you. As a lamp, it's simply going to give you a little light just at your feet to see where's your next step. And, as you trust his word and you take that one step as he guides that one step, he's guiding you in the direction for the next one and next one. And it's kind of scary. And it's like, are you sure you have a purpose? Are you sure there's a reason you're leading me this way? And it's just you keep using that lamp to your feet, light for your path, one by one. And that's really how I found my purpose, kind of started to play out in my life.
Wow. And that's so cool that that's what you chose, back in the third grade to do your show and tell about, is about John 3:16. And then just to have it confirmed with that $5 bill that the teacher brings you. What a cool testimony. I love that. I love that so much. Let me see. What was my next question here? Oh, yes. Okay. So in your bio, you talk about some of your hobbies, some of your interests. And so I thought that that was a great question to share with people. So a lot of people that I encounter tend to think that following Christ entails living a boring life. So what does your day-to-day life look like? Which you kind of explained. It can be very busy with your ministry piece and with your career piece, but like what do you do for fun outside of that?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's important. Everybody, like, you hear pastor, you hear Christian, you're like, oh, you just hate fun, don't you? You're like,
Yeah.
I stay very active. I'm out playing soccer with my friends. I'm in an indoor soccer team every week, so I love to go out and play soccer. I do mountain biking. We don't have paths probably like you have in Arizona or like Colorado or something, but we've got some big hills. And so we
And
go
where
out
are you?
there.
You're in Georgia, right?
I'm in St. Louis, so
Oh, St. Louis.
Missouri.
Oh,
Yeah,
Missouri. Got it. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So I do mountain biking, go out, cheer on the Cardinals, Blues, things everybody else might do and is fairly normal. But life doesn't have to be boring. In fact, I feel like as a Christian, it's more than not boring. Like it's like every day I go out, I might meet somebody new. I might meet somebody who doesn't know Christ. I might have a chance to actually impact their life and do something in it.
Mhm.
It's led me to different countries, getting to do mission trips to places like Panama to Mexico and, some terrible places. And I've gotten to go there. I've got to make a difference in those places. And that's the adventure of it, right? Is it could be something new every day, and I'm not just stuck to my mundane kind of 9 to 5. I still do that. It's bivocational. I still have my 9 to 5 sitting there doing some Salesforce code or something super boring, you know. But then, outside of that, like, you know, there's all kinds of possibilities. There's all kind of potential for what can be done.
Yeah, that is so cool. I love your explanation of that. I think one of the things that I see is that like culture today is like everything has to involve alcohol. And there's such a thin line between having fun or being like irresponsible, right? I can't think of
Hmm.
a better
Hmm.
word for that. And so people equate having fun to just being like sloppy drunk or everything revolves around alcohol or a lot of drugs too. And so it's interesting to find that so many people don't have the ability to have fun or um do like normal day-to-day things. And so to me, that's actually outside of the norm. I'm like, no, but like, I don't have to be drunk to have fun. Like there are other things that you can do that will like fill your soul up and, make you happy on a daily basis.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
exactly.
love,
I was gonna say, I think that that's kind of a growing thing as well. Like you do see that there's kind of growing, like beers that are 0% alcohol, where people are still like, well, I want to hang out, I want to have the experience, but even then, like that's a growing market, and that was not really a growing market, 10 years ago, where there's just like O'Doul's and that was it. It was like no, now Budweiser's doing one, everybody's doing one. Tom Holland just came out with one. Is like you know people are learning, maybe that's not just the only way to have fun.
yeah,
And it's so important to realize like those may be fun in the moment, but then there's always like that amount of shame or guilt or just like, why did I do that
yeah.
last night? Whatever. And it's
Most
just
people
like,
are. They're
yeah,
tired, they're hungover, they they
exactly.
they spent so much, on the cost of it. And you're just like, why do you keep doing this over and over again?
Yeah, exactly,
It's the
exactly. It's
same
like,
story.
yeah, there's a fullness that leaves no regret. Like there's a hope that you can actually do something and then not have to feel guilty for it after. It's so refreshing. It's so
Yeah.
freeing. So I definitely agree.
That's very cool. Yeah, I love that. So, you've talked about your Salesforce business. Is there a website that people could find you on? By the way, I can say, I personally know Luke business wise, highly recommend him to anybody watching. So, yes, if you could mention your website, and I'll put the link as well.
Yeah, yeah. So it should be at SF Consulting. No, it's at, sorry, savingsoftwaresolutions.com. I have a DBA, and that's what I go through. Or you could just email me, email me in my church email is fine. But, or you can email my personal email. We'll add some contact information below. But I do Salesforce consulting, Salesforce development, just kind of whatever I can do to help people who do Salesforce work out, build those relationships with their customers, and hopefully make their life a little easier, a little bit more efficient. Hopefully that's what you've experienced, Monica. Maybe not, but
Yes, definitely. No, I highly recommend. I'll give 5 stars. I'll go to that link. I don't know. I haven't looked at your review, but I certainly will. So yeah, that's very cool. And then one of the things actually that I did want to talk about is you had mentioned about people maybe struggling with their belief in God in general. And one of the things that I found that I would love to hear your explanation on is a lot of people maybe necessarily it's not that they don't believe in God, but I have found that there are so many people that just like hate God. They're so bitter. And then you're like, well, why? Well, because somebody in my family got cancer or a child that I know died. So, like, what kind of God is that? What would your comfort be or your response be to somebody who has that in their life?
Yeah, that's a great question, and part of it is you never want to trivialize, even if they're harsh, even if they're angry at Christianity, you never want to trivialize that pain, is real pain, and so I'm sorry for those that have experienced that, um, but one of the things that is kind of interesting or fascinating in these scenarios is those same people are typically like God doesn't exist, are also the same people that like I hate God because he did this thing. And so
And
you're
if
like,
and if
well,
you have a hate, that means that you believe. So,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. One of the people I follow, William Lane Craig, he's a big apologist, philosopher, guy, and one of his articles on like the problem of evil and why does evil exist, and he calls out in that article basically he says like a lot of people don't have a problem with the problem of evil from like a philosophical standpoint, like that they can kind of process through and they can figure that out, but what they have is they have an emotional response to that problem of evil, and when you're dealing with emotions it's hard to be like, well, yeah, but don't you see God could still redeem this, don't you see that God could still be working through this, um, don't you see that if there is no God, there's no such thing as evil? You're like, from a philosophical standpoint, that makes sense. But from an emotional standpoint, you're like, I don't care if it doesn't make sense. It just hurts. I'm just angry. And so you reject it. And so, for me, one of the only ways that I found you can help that is just to continue to love them. Continue to love them, even if they treat you like your enemy, even if they treat you like you're ill silly or, just unintelligent for believing something as crazy as there is a, intelligent design creator who made us, if they,
Yeah.
even then, I'm going to continue to love you, continue to serve you, continue to remind you that I'm sorry that those things happened to you, but God is still at work even in that. I will look at the story of Job, for example. And in the story of Job, what kind you have is Job, everything is going right, and devil basically says he only serves you because you bless him in every way. So he literally has every type of tragedy befall him. He loses his family, he loses his business, he loses his house, he loses everything in his life, and he goes to God and he shouts at God, "How could you let this happen to me? I didn't do anything wrong. I was being righteous this whole time. Like, why didn't you do anything? Why did you let this happen?" And I believe it's chapter 38 of Job. It just says, "Then God answered Job out of the storm." And out of everything going on, God answered, and his answer is very interesting, dealing with this problem of evil. His answer is simply this. He says, "Where were you when I put the earth in its place, when I put the land and the sea in their place, when I put the stars in the sky? Where were you when I was creating all that?" The implication is you weren't there, you weren't around, you weren't as great as I, you couldn't understand what I was doing. He says, in the same way, basically, you have to trust me that my ways are greater than your ways, that I am still making justice come to pass, whether it's in this life or the life to come, that I am still taking care of everything going on. And in the end, I will redeem it all for my glory.
Mhm.
But right now, we don't have a good way of explaining it. We don't have a good way of understanding it. We're simply trusting that our God, who is greater than us, can still make a way. And, even at the end, God redeems Job's story. He gives him double of everything he had before. He blesses him with double the livestock. He gives him a family again. He restores everything that was taken away from him. And it's just a promise that God is redeeming evil. So much
Yeah.
so that he looked at evil and said, "I'm willing to send my only son to die so that you don't have to experience that. So you don't have to be trapped in that anymore." And
Yeah.
that is how much he cares about the problem of evil, that he would be willing to suffer it himself to redeem us from it.
Yeah. Wow, that's such a beautiful explanation. And I really appreciate you. I'm glad that I thought to ask that. That was one of the things, because I think that so many people struggle with that, and
Yeah.
I know that there's going to be a lot of people who watch this video. I have a lot of followers, that are kind of on the fence of whether or not they believe. And so
Hmm.
I think that that's kind of like my target audience. And so I'm curious to see what feedback is going to be on that explanation. And I just really appreciate that. But yeah, you have such a cool testimony. I'm so glad that you agreed to be on here so that I could interview you, and that it all started with just simply me recognizing a Christian author in your bookmark bar on a Zoom
Yeah,
video.
it's amazing how God works. It's like that, it's amazing how he just draws people together for his purposes and his plans. So it's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Definitely. Well, I appreciate that. I'm going to put all of the links down below the video so that people can follow you and also look you up for the Sales First business as well. And did you have anything that you wanted to say in closing?
Uh, no, I'm just happy again, kind of like I said, happy to get to do this with you to be a part of what you're doing in this podcast. I think it's really cool. The stories you're highlighting, the power of just again and again seeing how God is powerfully moving in people's lives. Can't get enough of it. That's so good and I love it. So, keep it up.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Luke.
Thanks, Monica.
Planning a trip to Vegas? Don't forget to pre-book your off-road adventure with Adrenaline Junkies using code MonicaAnn for 10% off the subtotal before taxes. You can enjoy the thrill of an off-road adventure to the famous ghost town and even add on a trip to the Hoover Dam, cliff dive at Lake Mead, the shooting range, and a helicopter tour over the Las Vegas Strip. Just go to adrenalinejunkies.co to book now.